It's all 80s all the time on this episode of 190 North. Remember Flock of Seagulls? They're back. Lou Canellis has their story. Plus, the quintessential 80s band Queensryche is hot once again. Then, where do you look in Chicago for 80s collectibles? Liza Cruzat will show you. All on this edition of 190 North.
Catching the beat on the street, looking at life from another side. Backstage passes on opening night. Cameras rolling, show you the lights. Taking a rap, put your best step forward. Find a new home at 190 North. Find a new home at 190 North.
What was so cool about the 80s culture? We'll talk more with the 80s rock radio personality Jeffrey T. Mason when we return. We continue our look back at the 80s here on 190 North, and I think what truly defines a decade is its music. So we're going to talk about 80s music and run the gamut of what all that meant. We have Jeffrey T. Mason, I will call him Jeff, from the All 80s channel here, 103.1.
Very good.
We were talking about heavy metal, big, huge,
Oh, yeah.
new wave, which I remember the big hair bands, and the girl bands. They really got their start in the 80s, didn't they?
Go-Go's, Bananarama. Yeah, they were all there. Madonna was doing what she did, started out in the 80s.
Cyndi Lauper.
Cyndi Lauper. Yeah, it was a very culturally diverse, musically speaking, decade. I mean, there was just all types. I mean, in our radio station, the 80s channel, we play music from, you'll hear us go from Billy Idol to the Go-Go's to Flock of Seagulls, you know. And it's, there's just so much of it. And the difference between the 80s and the 90s, I think what makes the 80s a little more appealing is that all of it was popular at one time, and one person could listen to all sorts of music, and it was okay. As opposed to the 90s, you had your angst-ridden grunge, and you had one type of person who listened to that, and the other type listened to the boy bands, the Britney Spears, and that sort. But it was cool to listen to all sorts of things, and on the radio in the 80s, you played all sorts of that types of music.
When did heavy metal really start coming about, and what part of the 80s? Would you say early?
Yeah, early to mid. I mean, you know, the 70s was very rock-oriented, and it kind of rolled over into some of the early 80s. I think, you know, your Sammy Hagars, your Van Halens with the rock, your Rushes, yeah, early to mid 80s.
Would you point to maybe three people who were definitive?
Madonna was by far, in my mind, the most definitive 80s artist, because not only was her music just insanely popular, but styles, fashions, trends, everybody dressed up like Madonna, everybody wanted to be Madonna, she was everywhere. And maybe even a Michael Jackson or a Duran Duran.
Oh, Duran Duran.
Yeah.
Boy, I forgot about that. And yes, you sometimes forget about Michael Jackson really coming, because when was Thriller? Thriller was 1983?
It was 82, 83, yeah.
Yeah, and it still is. It still, what, breaks records in terms of...
It's up there. I think it's actually been broken, but it was at the time the most sold album. It's unbelievable.
What do you get the most requests for?
You know what? It's so varied. We get all sorts of requests. We actually, not only on the phones, we have an internet website at WXXY.com, and we stream across the country. And we get emails from everywhere asking for all sorts of songs. A lot of times more of the one-hit wonders than even the main artists like the Princes and the Madonnas and stuff like that. But all sorts. It runs the gamut. It's all sorts of things. I can get requests one night, and none of them will be for the same artist.
I mean, you like get Gary Newman requests?
Yeah, you know, Gary Newman, the new wave music, we'll get some hard rock, we'll get even some of the late 80s, more of the house, dancey type of songs, but yeah, just it runs the gamut, it's everything.
You know, when I think of 80s music, and you are originally from Philadelphia, I
Right.
think of Philly Soul, I think of
yeah.
Hall & Oates.
Absolutely, and we play a lot of that. Hall & Oates, Philly was such a music town. It's unbelievable. There was actually some stuff in Chicago, too, that has become popular. I mean, thinking of concerts that come back to town now, the people are so crazy about...
well, Styx.
Styx, you got Duran Duran was just through town, Flock of Seagulls just came through town.
Queensryche, which Jeff Tate was here on the show.
Queensryche, B-52s, the Go-Go's just came through. Rick Springfield
Oh, I know. We've had him here on 190.
I've seen him, and it's unbelievable. This guy keeps coming back to Chicago and packs the house with more crazed women than any show I think I know.
Well, that's because he's very sexy, too. Jeff Mason, thank you very much.
Thank
we'll
you.
be listening to the All 80s channel 103.1. All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back with more 80s right here. Don't go away.